Have you ever been betrayed by the one person you thought would always stand by you? That's where my story starts. They pinned a purple heart to my chest, and my father stood there, all smiles for the cameras, proclaiming, "My daughter's a hero." I wanted to hold on to that pride, to let it warm the cold corners of my heart. But just minutes later, I overheard him outside my hospital room, his voice sharp and bitter, telling a general, "She's no hero. Just a broken mind in a uniform. Should have let her die out there. Would have spared us the shame." Those words struck me like a thunderbolt, breaking everything I thought I was. Lying in that stiff hospital bed, the pain wasn't just in my aching body. It was in my very soul. Right there, I made a promise to myself. If they wanted me silenced, I'd shout every truth they tried to bury until the whole world heard. My name's Reagan Wolfe, 33 years old, a lieutenant in the United States Navy. And before I take you through what happened next, let me ask, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below so I know how far this story reaches. And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to get notifications for future stories. Now, let me tell you how it all started. The hospital room reeked of antiseptic and stale air, a smell that stuck to my skin no matter how much the nurses scrubbed. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, pounding in time with my heartbeat, making my head throb like a drum. Every inch of me ached, but nothing compared to the fire scorching my back. Each time I shifted in that cursed wheelchair, my uniform scraped against the raw scars, like someone was slicing into me all over again. God, I hated that chair. It wasn't just a seat. It was a prison, chaining me to a version of myself I didn't know. Just months ago, I was the Iron Wolf, striding through sand and steel with 60 pounds on my back, never breaking a sweat. They said I was unbreakable. Now, I couldn't even reach for a glass of water without my spine screaming, threatening to shatter. Those stark white walls glared at me, too clean, throwing my weakness back in my face like a cruel mirror. I stared at the purple heart pinned to my chest, this so-called badge of honor. To the world, it was glory. To me, it was a heavy reminder of the lives I couldn't save, of the moment it all went wrong. Every glance at that medal brought back Ruiz's voice, his goofy jokes that kept us sane in the chaos. I could still hear his last one, cut short by the blast that stole him. I didn't even get to laugh. Closing my eyes only made it worse. I saw fire, twisted metal, the moment the guidance system failed. And then, that deafening silence, heavier than any explosion. That silence stuck with me, louder than the pain, deeper than the scars. It was the sound of knowing no one was coming. A sharp knock jolted me back. A nurse peeked in, her eyes soft with pity I'd grown to despise. She gave me that smile, the one people use when they've read your chart and know too much. She adjusted my IV, mumbled something about pain meds, and slipped out without asking how I was. Nobody asked anymore. They saw the war hero on the news and thought I was okay. But I wasn't okay. Not even close. Outside, the sky hung heavy, a dull gray that promised rain but wouldn't deliver. It felt like the world was holding its breath around me. My mind kept circling back to my father's voice in the hallway, cutting me open without raising a tone. "She's no hero, just a broken mind in a uniform." Those words played on a loop, a cruel song I couldn't shut off. I gripped the arms of my wheelchair until my knuckles turned white. How could he say that? The man who taught me to tie my boots, to fire a rifle, to believe serving our country was the highest honor. How could he dismiss me like I was nothing? The truth hurt worse than any wound. I'd never been enough for him. Not at Annapolis, not leading my first unit, not even now with a medal on my chest and blood on my hands for the country we both swore to serve. I leaned forward as much as my broken spine allowed, the pain stabbing through me like a knife. I welcomed it. Pain was real. It meant I was still here. My father's words wanted to erase me, turn me into a ghost, but the fire in my body said otherwise. I wasn't going anywhere. The clock on the wall ticked slow, each second stretching like a lifetime. I reached for the journal on my tray table, its blank pages waiting. My hand shook as I picked up the pen. I wrote Ruiz, then Simmons, then Hartley. Each name felt like a promise etched into my bones. I wouldn't let them be forgotten. My father was always in uniform, even in my earliest memories. Whether it was a weekday or a lazy Sunday at home, he carried that stiff posture, that air of command, like it was part of his DNA. Our house was quiet. Not the cozy kind of quiet, but the kind where silence meant discipline. The sound of his boots hitting the hardwood floors would make my heart jump. He wasn't the dad who tucked me in or read me stories. Instead, he had me reciting the Navy's core values before I could even write my own name. I'd watch him at the kitchen table, polishing his metals with slow, careful strokes, like he was wiping away more than just smudges. I wanted him to look at me like that, with care, with pride. But to him, I was just another soldier, even at 6 years old. "Stand tall, Reagan," he'd say, lifting my chin. No one respects weakness, especially not in this family. I tried so hard to be what he wanted. When I was 12, I begged to join the school soccer team. I can still see his jaw tighten, his eyes narrowing like I'd asked for something shameful. "Soccer? What's that going to teach you about life? You want to be strong, you run, you lift, you learn to shoot straight. You prepare for real battles, not games." I swallowed hard, nodded, and ran laps around the neighborhood instead, hoping he'd notice. He never did. At night, the silence grew thicker, heavier. The painkillers wore off, and memories flooded in like a tide I couldn't hold back. The blast, the screams, the smell of burning canvas. They played on a loop, driving me to the edge of sanity. Sometimes I'd press my hands over my ears, hoping to block out the past like it was just noise. It never worked. One night, I caught my reflection in the mirror across from my bed. The woman staring back wasn't me. Her skin was ghostly, her eyes sunken, her hair a patchy mess from the surgery. I lifted my hospital gown just enough to see my back in the glass. The scars looked alive in the dim light, like rivers burned into my skin. For a second, I didn't even recognize them as mine. That's when it hit me. The war wasn't just out there. It was here, in this sterile room in my own reflection, in the silence after my father's betrayal. They wanted me to heal quietly, take my medal, and fade away. But I wouldn't. Not while the truth about Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley was still buried. The next morning, I started writing. The notebook was just a cheap spiral thing from the hospital gift shop, but in my hands, it felt like a weapon. I wrote everything. The terrain, the timing, the moment the guidance system failed. I wrote about Ruiz's last words, the way Simmons gripped my hand before the blast. My handwriting was messy, my fingers stiff with pain, but I kept going. Every word felt like a piece of armor I was forging for myself. The nurses noticed the change. I wasn't just sitting there anymore, lost in the fog. I had purpose. Fire. One of them asked what I was writing. I just smiled and said, "The truth." The day I decided to fight back wasn't some big, dramatic moment. No speeches, no sudden burst of courage. It was just me, sitting in that sterile hospital room, staring at a blank notebook page, my hand shaking over the pen. I wrote one line, raw and simple. They tried to erase us. Then the words poured out, like I was bleeding my memories onto the paper, each one a refusal to stay silent. The more I wrote, the more I felt this anger building inside me. Not the hot, reckless kind that fizzles out, but a slow, steady burn, the kind that can carve through steel. My father's words kept ringing in my head. She's no hero. She's broken. Fine. Maybe I was broken, but even a shattered piece of glass can draw blood. I started piecing together that mission, every detail I could drag up from the fog of memory. I sketched maps of the terrain, marked where each unit stood, and listed every glitch we hit with the Helios Dynamics guidance system. I even noted the eerie static that killed our comms right before the ambush. As I stared at my scribbles, something clicked. It wasn't just bad luck. It felt planned, like someone decided my team was worth sacrificing. Doubt crept in every time I stopped writing. What could I do against a system that big? Against generals, corporations, my own father? But then I'd catch a glimpse of the scars on my back in the mirror, and the doubt melted away. Those scars weren't just pain. They were proof. Proof I'd survived what they wanted to bury. One evening, after another grueling round of physical therapy, I sat in my wheelchair, staring at the hospital door. I pictured my father walking in, not as my dad, but as Colonel Wolfe, cold and untouchable. I wondered what I'd say if he stood there. Maybe I'd ask why I was never enough for him. Maybe I'd tell him I was done chasing his shadow. But deep down, I realized I didn't need his answers anymore. I needed mine. That night, I made up my mind. This fight was leaving these hospital walls. I wasn't going to let my father's story, the broken daughter he dismissed, be the one people remembered. I was going to tell my truth, even if it meant standing alone. The first step was small but terrifying. I requested the mission's debriefing files. As expected, I got a curt access denied. They didn't want me digging. That only lit a fiercer fire in me. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to unearth their lies. On my bedside table, the Purple Heart glinted under the dim hospital light. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. For weeks, I'd despised it, seeing it as a shiny lie to cover their tracks. But now, it was something else. A symbol of what I'd paid and the voice I'd earned. They could try to silence me, but I'd already bled for this truth. I wasn't letting it die quietly. As I closed my notebook, a strange calm settled over me. The fear was still there, but it didn't own me anymore. I whispered to myself, like a promise. You don't get to win, Dad. Not this time. Not ever. The next morning, I wheeled down the hallway, passing other soldiers fighting their own battles. Some nodded at me, their eyes holding a quiet understanding. I wasn't the only one wrestling with ghosts, but I was one of the few who refused to let them win. I stopped at the window, the gray sky staring back. My scars reflected faintly in the glass, and for the first time, I didn't look away. They weren't ugly. They were mine. They told a story I was ready to shout to the world. With my notebook in my lap and a fire hardening in my chest, I braced for the war I knew was coming. The real fight wasn't on the battlefield anymore. It was here, in the halls of power, in the silence of those who knew the truth but stayed quiet. And if I had to stand alone, so be it. The first time I saw my father on TV after the medal ceremony, I barely recognized him. Not because he looked different. His uniform was crisp as ever, but because of the man he chose to be right then. He wasn't my dad. He was Colonel Patrick Wolfe, the picture of military honor, ready to crush anyone, even his own daughter, to protect that image. I'd wheeled into the hospital lounge that morning, desperate for a distraction from the constant fire in my back. The TV was already on, and the headline crawling across the screen hit me like a punch. War heroes claims questioned, Colonel Wolfe speaks out. My stomach twisted. It was like being dropped into a war zone with no warning. The reporter's voice was all soft sympathy as she leaned toward him. Colonel Wolfe, your daughter, Lieutenant Reagan Wolfe, has raised serious accusations about a mission failure and potential negligence by military contractors. What can you tell us about her claims? His face filled the screen, hard as granite, his voice so calm it chilled me. My daughter is indeed a hero, he started, the words sounding rehearsed, empty. She served with honor, but war leaves wounds, many invisible. Reagan is struggling with PTSD. She's vulnerable, clinging to conspiracy theories with no basis in fact. What she needs isn't attention, it's healing. Every word was a knife, aimed straight at me. He paused, looking right into the camera, his tone softening in a way he'd never done for me in private. We must protect our military institutions from false narratives, no matter how personal they seem. False narratives. He was calling me a liar in front of millions. The lounge went dead quiet. Soldiers, nurses, visitors, they all stopped. their eyes flicking toward me, a mix of pity and doubt. I felt their stares like stones piling on my chest. I wanted to scream at that TV, to tell them my father was the one lying, that I wasn't making this up. But my voice stuck, choked by rage and betrayal. The screen cut to a commercial, but the damage was done. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. I wheeled out before anyone could speak, my hands gripping the wheelchair rims so hard my knuckles burned white. Back in my room, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Pale, eyes wide like I'd seen a ghost. My own father, my commanding officer, had just torn me apart on national TV. I wasn't just up against a broken system anymore. I was fighting my own blood. A nurse came in to check my vitals, her eyes darting between me and the muted TV in the corner. "Lieutenant Wolfe," she said softly, like she was handling something fragile. "Maybe skip the interviews. They might make things harder." I almost laughed. Harder? My father had just burned the last shred of trust I had in him, and I was supposed to act like it was nothing. When she left, I grabbed my notebook. My hands shook, but I forced the pen to move. He's protecting them. He's protecting the lie. Each word felt like chiseling truth into stone. I wasn't letting his story, the one that painted me as broken and delusional, be the only one out there. I glanced at the Purple Heart on my bedside table, glinting under the harsh fluorescent light. They wanted me to be their symbol, a smiling hero for the cameras while they buried the truth. But my father had just lit a fire in me he couldn't put out. If he thought he could silence me, he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. I didn't have to wait long for the next hit to come. That afternoon, the hospital phone rang, and my stomach knotted when I saw Evan's name on the screen. My older brother, we hadn't talked in weeks, not since the mission went to hell. "Reagan," he said, his voice low, careful, like he was delivering a warning. "I saw Dad's interview. I'm guessing you did too." "Yeah," I said, my tone sharp as ice. "And I bet you're calling to tell me he's right? That I'm just making it all up?" There was a long pause, just the sound of his breath on the line. "I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm saying you need to watch your step. This isn't a fight you can win." My blood burned. Can't win? Evan, people died out there. Ruiz, Simmons, Hartley, they didn't make it home. And now Dad's on TV calling me a liar while Helios Dynamics gets off scot-free. You really expect me to just shut up? You don't get what's at stake, he snapped, his voice harder now. Helios has powerful friends, billions in contracts. You go after them, you're not just tanking your career, you're dragging the Wolfe name through the dirt. There it was again. The Wolfe name. Always about the family legacy, never about what was right. "I don't give a damn about the name," I shot back. "If Dad's honor means burying what happened to my team, maybe that name's not worth saving." "Don't say that," Evan said, his voice rising, raw for the first time. "You think I don't care about you? You think I don't lie awake wondering if you're okay? But there's a line, Reagan. Dad's doing what's best for the family. So am I. And if that means you need to stay quiet..." I cut him off. "Stay quiet? That's why you called? To tell me to roll over and let them win?" He went silent, and I let that silence hang, heavy as a storm cloud before the thunder. "You've changed," he said finally, softer now. "This isn't you, Reagan. You're letting anger run the show." "No, Evan," I said, my voice steady as stone. "It's not anger. It's truth. Maybe you can live with Dad's lies. I can't." The call ended soon after, neither of us willing to cross the divide. I sat there, clutching the phone so hard my hand ached. My own brother, the guy who used to sneak me out for ice cream when Dad's rules felt like a cage, had chosen his side, and it wasn't mine. That evening, a nurse dropped off my mail, mostly get-well cards from strangers, but tucked in the pile was a stiff official envelope. I ripped it open and found a notice from the Navy's legal division. "Lieutenant Reagan Wolfe will be evaluated for mental competency regarding her statements about classified missions. I knew exactly what this was. Evan's department. My own brother had a hand in this. The papers hit the table, and I stared at them, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. My father's betrayal was one thing, but Evan? That cut deeper than any scar I carried. I grabbed my notebook, my hand shaking with fury as I wrote, "If my own family wants to silence me, I know I'm on the right path." The truth scares them more than I ever could. The pen tore the paper on that last line, but I didn't care. I'd keep writing, keep fighting, no matter how alone I was. By the end of that week, I learned what a real war looked like when the battlefield was the news. Helios Dynamics didn't waste a second. Overnight, they turned my story into a circus. News anchors, talk shows, even podcasts tore into me, questioning my sanity. Headlines blared, "Purple Heart Hero" or "Delusional Soldier," and Lieutenant Wolfe's wild claims about mission sabotage. It felt like the whole world was shouting me down. But nothing hit harder than the video. It showed up one morning on a viral news channel, playing on every screen in the hospital lounge. At first, I thought it was an old clip from the medal ceremony. My face stared back at me. Pale, tired, hair pulled tight. But then I heard the words I never said. "I don't trust anyone," my voice said. But it wasn't right. Choppy, pieced together. I see things. Sometimes I don't even know what's real. Maybe I made it all up. My whole body went rigid. It was a deep fake. They'd stitched my image and voice into a lie to make me sound crazy. The lounge buzzed with whispers. A guy across from me glanced at the TV, then at me, his eyes cautious. "Is that you?" he asked, like he was afraid I'd shatter. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my head spinning. I gripped the wheels of my chair and pushed myself back to my room, my hands shaking so bad I could hardly move. In my room, I slammed the door and opened my laptop. The video was everywhere, millions of views, comments flooding in. "She's lost it. Typical PTSD case. Why'd they give her a medal?" I wanted to scream, to smash the screen. Instead, I grabbed my notebook and wrote, "This is war. Not with bullets, but with lies that erase you until the world thinks you never existed." The hospital staff started acting different after that. Their smiles were forced, their voices hushed, like they thought I might snap. I overheard a nurse whispering in the hall, "She's the one from the video, right? The one losing her mind?" The humiliation burned worse than any scar. I stayed in my room, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was their plan, to kill my reputation since they couldn't kill me on the battlefield. Then, late that night, my secure phone buzzed. The one Admiral Ellison gave me. An unknown number? A short message. "You're not crazy. Helios pays to bury the truth. I know because I was part of it. Noah Patel. Meet me tomorrow, the daily grind, 9 a.m. Come alone." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. For the first time in days, I felt something besides rage or despair. A flicker of hope, small but real. If this Noah Patel had proof, if he could back up what I knew, maybe I could fight back. I held my notebook tight that night, like it was all I had left. They could fake my voice, my face, but they couldn't fake the truth I carried. They couldn't erase Ruiz, Simmons, Hartley. I wouldn't let them. I couldn't sleep that night. Noah Patel's message kept looping in my head. Every word burned into my brain. I read it over and over, half expecting it to disappear if I blinked. At 9 a.m., I'd meet him at the daily grind, just outside the hospital gates. But I wasn't naive. If Patel was telling the truth, Helios wouldn't let him walk away easily. He was risking everything, and that meant I was stepping into something dangerous. The next morning, I wheeled into the cafe, the smell of burnt espresso and quiet chatter filling the air. My heart was pounding as I scanned the room. Soldiers in street clothes, nurses grabbing coffee, but no one who stood out. Then I spotted him. Mid-40s, messy dark hair, thick glasses, looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes darting nervously. When our gazes locked, he didn't smile. He just slid into the seat across from me and pushed a small flash drive across the table. "This is all I could get," he whispered, barely loud enough to hear. "Emails, memos, recorded calls. It proves Helios knew the guidance system was faulty before your mission. They called it acceptable risk to keep their delivery schedule." I gripped the flash drive, my hands shaking. "Why give this to me?" He looked down, his voice heavy. "Because I can't carry it anymore. I tried to ignore it, told myself it wasn't my fault. But then I saw you on the news, heard them call you crazy. That's when I knew. If they can do this to you, they can do it to anyone." Before I could say anything, the bell above the cafe door jingled. 2 men in suits walked in, their eyes sweeping the room like hawks. Patel froze, his hand tightening around his coffee cup. "I have to go," he muttered, standing so fast the chair scraped. "Don't call me. Don't text. Just do what you need to do." He was gone before I could blink. I stared at the flash drive, my pulse racing. Every instinct told me this was the proof I'd been fighting for. But how long before Helios came for me too? "Lieutenant Wolfe." A deep voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned to see Admiral Grant Ellison, tall and broad-shouldered, his navy jacket doing little to hide his commanding presence. His face gave nothing away as he sat across from me. "You've been making a lot of noise," he said, his tone steady but sharp with warning. "And I've been listening." I didn't say a word, just tightened my grip on the flash drive. "I know about the deepfake," he went on. "Your father's statements, Helios's PR machine. They're trying to crush you because you're a threat. But I also know you're right. I've seen the reports. Helios cut corners and good soldiers paid the price." The breath I'd been holding slipped out, shaky. "Then why isn't anyone doing anything?" "Money," he said plainly. "Helios has generals, senators, the whole system in their pocket. But they don't control the Senate Armed Services Committee. Not yet. That's where you take this." He nodded at the flash drive. I glanced down at it, then back at him. "Why are you helping me?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment his eyes softened. "Because I've seen too many good soldiers buried under lies. And because I knew your mother. She believed you'd grow up to shake things up. I'd hate for her to be wrong." Her name hit me like a wave. I didn't know she'd ever talk to him about me. He leaned in, his voice dropping low. "If you do this, be ready. They'll come for you harder than ever. They'll call you unstable, try to lock you away, and if that doesn't work, they'll go after anyone who stands with you." His words felt like cold steel against my skin. "Let them try," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I'm done being their scapegoat." Ellison gave me a small, grim smile. "Good. I'll make some calls. Be ready." The morning after meeting Admiral Ellison, I woke to heavy boots stomping outside my hospital room. Not the usual shuffle of nurses or the light chatter of orderlies. This was different. Colder, like a storm rolling in. I shifted in my wheelchair, my back screaming with every move, straining to hear. The door swung open and Captain Mark Dalton strode in, flanked by 2 MPs. His uniform was crisp, his face hard as stone, eyes sizing me up like I was a threat, not a wounded soldier. "Lieutenant Wolfe," he said, his voice sharp and clipped. "We've got orders to transfer you for a mandatory psychological evaluation, effective immediately." I stared, certain I'd heard wrong. "A psych eval?" I shot back, my tone biting. "What, because I won't swallow my father's lies? Because I want the truth about what happened to my team?" "This isn't a debate," Dalton said, his voice flat, like he'd rehearsed it. "It's for your safety and others. You've been under stress. Your claims about Helios Dynamics." He paused, picking his words carefully. "They're raising concerns." "Concerns?" I let out a bitter laugh, more like a growl. "Let me guess, my father signed off on this?" Dalton didn't answer. His silence said it all. The MP stepped closer, and I wheeled back until my chair hit the wall. My heart was racing, the sterile white room closing in like a cage. I could see it now. Locked away in some secure facility. My voice snuffed out. My truth buried under a label. Mentally unfit. No, I said, my voice trembling but solid. You're not taking me anywhere. I'm not crazy. I know what I saw out there. I know what happened to Ruiz, Simmons, Hartley. Their names caught in my throat, heavy with grief. For a split second, something flickered in Dalton's eyes. Guilt, maybe. But it vanished fast. This isn't about what you saw, he said, quieter now. It's about keeping order. You're a problem, Lieutenant, and problems get dealt with. That was it. The truth laid bare. They weren't here to help me. They were here to erase me. Panic surged like a tidal wave, but I gripped the arms of my wheelchair, my knuckles aching. I could hear my father's voice, cold and cutting. She's a broken mind in a uniform. He was probably already spinning the story. His poor, unstable daughter, undone by war. The perfect lie for the media to eat up. The perfect way to bury my truth. I forced myself to breathe. If I lost it now, they'd win. They'd see the broken woman they wanted. I wasn't giving them that. You can tell whoever sent you, I said, slow and steady despite the fear hammering in my chest. If they want me in a psych ward, they'll have to drag me there with every camera in this hospital watching. And when I get out, I'll make sure the world knows exactly what they did. Dalton paused, his jaw tight. One of the MPs shifted, uneasy. For a moment, no one moved. Then Dalton sighed, a faint crease in his brow. You've got 24 hours, he said, stepping back. After that, orders are orders. They left, the door clicking shut like a lock snapping into place. I sat there shaking, every muscle coiled tight. I wanted to scream, to cry, but I didn't. I grabbed my notebook and started writing. They want me to break. They think they can push me until I give in. They're wrong. The pen scratched across the page and something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about my sanity anymore. It was about every soldier who'd been silenced, every voice crushed by the system's weight. I closed my eyes and for a moment I could see them. Ruiz laughing, Simmons rolling his eyes, Hartley humming that old tune he loved before missions. I could almost hear them urging me on. And I knew then, I'd rather be called crazy than let their memory fade into silence. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow flickering under the door made my body tense. Dalton's words echoed in my head. You've got 24 hours. It wasn't just a deadline. It was a threat. I knew when the clock ran out, they'd drag me from this hospital room to some psych ward, all while smiling for the cameras. The next morning, I reached for my notebook on the tray table, where I always kept it. It was gone. My stomach dropped. Someone had been in here rifling through my notes, the names of my team, my suspicions about Helios, everything I'd pieced together. Panic hit me hard as I tore through my blankets. After a frantic minute, I found it shoved under my pillow. Pages flipped, corners bent in ways I hadn't left them. Someone wanted me to know they'd been here. Later, as I wheeled toward the lounge, I spotted a man in civilian clothes leaning against the hallway wall, nose in a newspaper. His eyes kept darting my way. When I looked back, he folded the paper and walked off. My heart thundered. Was I paranoid, or was I finally seeing their game? Back in my room, I found a note on my bed, scrawled in blocky letters. Stop digging, Wolfe. No signature. I crumpled it in my fist, my pulse roaring. They weren't even pretending anymore. They wanted me scared, silent. The worst part? I had no one to trust here. The hospital staff's pity had turned to suspicion. I overheard 2 nurses by the supply station. She's the one from the video, right? The one with issues? My face burned, anger and shame twisting tight. That deepfake was working, painting me as unhinged, stripping away my credibility. Only Nurse Callie treated me like I wasn't a walking disaster. She was young, late 20s, with warm brown eyes that reminded me of home. That evening, while changing my bandages, she leaned in, voice low. Lieutenant Wolfe, Someone's been asking about you. A man in a suit, not hospital staff, wanted to know if you'd had any episodes. My chest tightened. Did you tell him anything? She shook her head. No way. But he didn't seem like the type to take no for an answer. Her hand stilled, her voice dropping to a whisper. You're not safe here. Her words hit like ice. This wasn't just in my head anymore. They were closing in. After she left, I sat in the dim light, staring at Patel's flash drive. It was my only weapon. I plugged it into the hospital's clunky laptop, half braced for alarms. Files loaded, emails, memos, Helios reports. One email chain stopped me cold. Senior engineers and a director talking about the system flaw before my mission. We're aware of the risk. One wrote, if the guidance freezes mid-operation, the team won't have time to respond. The reply? Proceed anyway. Delivery schedule must be maintained. Acceptable casualties. I covered my mouth, fighting the urge to be sick. Acceptable casualties. That's what Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley were to them. A price they were happy to pay. I spent hours copying details into my notebook, page after page of evidence. But knowing this wasn't enough. If they guessed I had it, they'd come for me. That evening I saw him again, the man from the hallway across the parking lot, pretending to be on his phone. His eyes flicked to my window. I slammed the blinds shut and locked the door, though I knew it wouldn't stop them if they wanted in. Sitting on my bed, I gripped the flash drive in one hand, my pen in the other, my heart pounding like a war drum. I whispered to myself, you're not alone. You're not crazy. They want you to think you are, but you're not. I wasn't sure I believed it yet, but I had to hold on to something, or I'd lose myself completely. 2 days after spotting that man in the parking lot, I heard Evan's footsteps before I saw him. Sharp, deliberate, like Dad's, but lighter, less commanding, yet just as heavy in their own way. The door swung open, and there he was in a tailored suit, his lawyer's armor polished to perfection. Reagan, he said, voice smooth but edged with that condescending authority I'd grown to hate. We need to talk. I crossed my arms and didn't say a word. He didn't get to waltz in here, after weeks of backing Dad, acting like he was doing me some kind of favor. I've been assigned to the legal team reviewing your statements. He went on, ignoring my silence. There's concern about your mental stability. The brass thinks it's best you go along with the psych eval before this spirals any further. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Mental stability? You mean the eval Dad ordered to slap an unstable label on me so they can bury my story? He sighed, stepping closer. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Reagan. I'm trying to help you. Help me? My voice cracked, raw and jagged. Is that what you call standing next to Dad on TV while he tells the world I'm broken? Or helping push papers to treat me like a criminal? His jaw tightened. I didn't file anything. That was Dad's call, but I agree with him. Those words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. My nails dug into my palms, heat flaring in my chest. Of course you do. You're his perfect son, the golden wolf. And me, I'm just the broken one, bleeding for the wrong reasons. For a split second, his eyes softened, but he shut it down fast. This isn't about favoritism, he said. It's about the family name. What you're doing is reckless. Helios is untouchable. Dad's reputation is at stake. Do you want to tear down everything we've built? I stared at him, stunned by the gall of it. Tear down what we've built? Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley are dead, Evan. Do their names mean nothing to you? Do you even care why they died? His silence was louder than any answer. He didn't look away, but his face said it all. He was here for the family legacy, not for me. I wheeled closer, my voice shaking with rage. I'm not your PR problem to fix. I'm your sister. And I'm telling the truth whether you like it or not. Call me crazy if you want, but I won't let Dad and his buddies erase what happened. You don't get how dangerous this is, he said, his voice rising, sharp. You're up against a machine that chews people up and spits them out. You think Dad's tough? Helios will destroy you without a second thought. And if you drag our name through the mud, I can't protect you. My whole body trembled, fists clenched tight. I don't need your protection. I need you to believe me, just once, Evan. Look at me and tell me you don't see the truth in what I'm saying. He hesitated, his jaw working like he was wrestling with something. Loyalty to Dad, maybe guilt. But he didn't say it. He just shook his head. I'm sorry, Reagan. As he turned to leave, I wasn't done. Evan, I called, my voice raw. You can stand with Dad all you want, but one day you'll see whose side you should have picked. I just hope it's not too late. The door closed, and the silence that followed was heavier than ever. I sat there, gripping my notebook so hard the cover buckled. My own brother had chosen the system over me. I opened the notebook and wrote one line. If my own family won't fight for the truth, I'll fight alone. 2 nights after Evan stormed out, Admiral Ellison showed up again. I knew it was him before he stepped into the room. Those broad shoulders, that steady stance, a presence that made the air feel charged. He shut the door and leaned against it, his eyes locking on mine with a mix of respect and caution. You've got them spooked, he said, keeping his voice low. Helios, the MPs, even your father. They're scrambling, wondering how much you know and how far you'll push. I held up Patel's flash drive. Enough to keep them up at night. But I don't know how to make anyone listen. Ellison moved closer, his boots quiet on the hospital floor. He sat across from me, his face etched with hard lines. You've got 2 paths, Lieutenant. Let them slap you with an unstable label and bury this, or fire the first shot in a war they didn't see coming. His words struck deep, igniting something I hadn't felt in days. Here was someone who didn't see a broken soldier, just a fighter who could win. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and pulled up Patel's files. Ellison leaned in, his eyes narrowing as I scrolled through emails about system flaws, memos mentioning acceptable casualties, and financials showing Helios execs pocketing bonuses post-mission. But the audio file stopped us both dead. A gruff, commanding voice crackled through the speakers. If it fails during deployment, we call it a combat loss and move on. The contract's worth more than a few soldiers. Ellison's face turned to stone. That's General Briggs, he said. Not shocked, but grim, like he'd long suspected it. The recording kept going. No delays. The risk is acceptable. The press won't know the difference. My fists clenched, rage burning hot in my chest. This is it, isn't it? Proof they knew. Proof they left us to die. Ellison nodded. It's a start. But proof's useless without the right audience. We need someone who can't be bought. On the Senate Armed Services Committee. Someone who won't think I'm crazy, I muttered. He gave a tight smile. I'll handle that. I've still got friends in high places. But Reagan, once we move, there's no turning back. Helios will hit harder. Your father, he won't budge. I swallowed, the weight of it pressing down. I've already lost him. What's left to lose? He didn't answer, just handed me a secure phone. Patel's at a safe house tonight. He's got more files that could gut Helios's board. You ready to meet him? Absolutely, I said, no hesitation. That night, Nurse Callie helped me slip out of the hospital. The night air hit my face, sharp and cold, as she pushed my wheelchair to Ellison's waiting car. My nerves were electric, fear and adrenaline battling it out. We drove in silence, city lights streaking by, until we pulled up to an old warehouse on the edge of town. Inside, Patel was pacing like a caged animal. He flinched when he saw us, then hurried over, shoving a folder into Ellison's hands. This is everything, Patel said, voice trembling. Audits, Black Ops funds, a contract clause signed by Briggs himself. They knew the system was faulty before your mission. They let it happen. I took the folder, my hands shaking as I skimmed the pages. Every line sliced through the lies I'd been fed. I looked at Patel, my voice steady despite the fire inside. Why risk this? Why me? His eyes shone with guilt and grit. I've been a coward too long. I can't live with their blood on my hands anymore. Ellison's hand landed firm on my shoulder. This is our ammo. But Reagan, once this goes public, they'll throw everything at you. I stared at the folder, then at them. Let them. I'm done running. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting, and I wasn't alone anymore. The day before the Senate hearing, I woke to Colonel Patrick Wolfe looming at the foot of my hospital bed. His uniform was flawless, medals gleaming like they'd been polished for this moment alone. His presence sucked the air out of the room, heavy as a storm about to break. Reagan, he said, his voice calm but laced with the steel of a command. We need to talk. I stayed in my wheelchair, arms crossed, refusing to let him see me shrink. Talk? Or are you here to tell me I'm a disgrace again? His jaw clenched, but he kept his tone level. What I said on TV was to protect you. You're not thinking straight. You've been through trauma, and this obsession with Helios, it's going to destroy you. Protect me? My voice cut through the air, sharp as a blade. You told the world I should have died out there, that my life wasn't worth your embarrassment. Don't pretend this is about me. It's about your reputation. Always has been. His eyes narrowed, cold and hard. You don't see the bigger picture. The military is bigger than your feelings. Exposing Helios won't fix anything. It'll tear down the institution we've built for generations. My hands trembled on the armrests, rage boiling inside. Built what? A lie? You think I'll just sit here and let Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley be written off as acceptable losses? They trusted me, Dad. They trusted this country. And you... My voice broke, but I pushed through. You're letting their deaths mean nothing. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe regret. But it was gone, swallowed by that iron resolve. Those men knew the risks. They volunteered. War takes lives. That's the reality. What you're doing isn't honorable, Reagan. It's reckless. Honorable? I laughed, the sound raw and bitter. What's honorable about hiding corruption? About silencing your own daughter because she won't play your game? I used to think you stood for integrity. Now I see you're just another piece of the machine, too scared to admit it's broken. He stepped closer, his voice dropping, cutting like a knife. If you go through with this hearing, you'll destroy your career and this family. Evan's already sacrificed enough trying to protect you. Think about your mother. The Wolfe name. You want that blood on your hands too? My heart pounded, but I held his gaze. The Wolfe name means nothing if it's built on lies. I don't care about the career you think I'm ruining. I care about the truth. If that means burning your precious reputation to ash, so be it. The silence that followed was suffocating. For the first time, he looked unsteady, like he'd miscalculated. He opened his mouth, then shut it, searching for words that didn't come. Finally, he said, I didn't raise you to be like this. No, I said, my voice quiet but unyielding. You raised me to follow orders blindly, to be the soldier you wanted, not the person I am. But maybe the best thing I can do is stop being your daughter and start being the soldier my team deserved. His face tightened, but he said nothing. He just stared, his eyes unreadable, then turned and walked out. His boots echoed down the hall like gunfire. I sat there, chest heaving, hands shaking from the weight of it all. For years, I'd chased his approval, desperate for his pride. Now I knew I didn't need it. I didn't need him. I grabbed my notebook and wrote, I will tell the truth tomorrow, no matter who stands in my way. The words were messy, but they felt like the strongest thing I'd ever done. Tomorrow, I wasn't just taking on Helios. I was standing against everything my father stood for. And for the first time, I was ready. The day before the Senate hearing, the media frenzy hit a fever pitch. Every channel I flipped to was peddling the same narrative. Lieutenant Reagan Wolfe. War hero or dangerous whistleblower? They looped footage designed to break me down. Shaky clips from the medal ceremony, grainy shots of me in a hospital gown, and that damn deepfake Helios had unleashed, painting me as unhinged. I sat in my wheelchair in the hospital lounge, staring at the screen. A morning show host was tearing me apart like I was some tabloid villain. "She's clearly battling PTSD," one pundit said, his voice oozing fake sympathy. "Her accusations are wild, baseless. It's tragic to see a hero spiral into conspiracy land." Another added, "She's testifying against Helios and top brass tomorrow. If this isn't handled carefully, it could erode trust in our military." My knuckles ached from gripping the wheelchair's armrests. They weren't just discrediting me. They were making me the enemy, hammering nails into the coffin of my credibility with every word. Back in my room, I found a stack of tabloids shoved under the door. The top headline screamed, "Wolfe family feud. Father calls, daughter unstable, ahead of testimony." Dad's stern face glared from one side, while mine, caught mid-blink, looking lost, stared from the other. I swept the papers off my bed, letting them scatter like trash. The hospital staff's whispers trailed me now. Some soldiers gave me quiet nods of support, but others dodged my eyes like I was a walking plague. It stung, but I kept reminding myself. The truth was bigger than their judgment. Admiral Ellison showed up that afternoon, his face grim. "Helios is pulling every lever. They've got pundits on every network trashing you. Expect them to hit harder tomorrow." "They already call me crazy," I said, bitterness seeping through. "What's left?" He fixed me with a steady look. "They'll try to bait you at the hearing, push you to snap. Don't let them. Stay calm, sharp, let the evidence do the talking." I nodded, but the pressure felt like it was crushing me from all sides. That evening, Callie slipped into my room with a tablet. "You need to see this," she said, eyes wide. I hit play. It was a new Helios video, leaked through an anonymous source. It showed me in a therapy session weeks back, venting about the mission, but edited to make me sound deranged, my words chopped into incoherent rants. My stomach churned. "They're not even pretending anymore," I muttered. "They're scared," Callie said, her voice soft but firm. "Nobody fights this dirty unless they're terrified of what you'll say." Her words sparked a faint flicker of hope. Maybe the attacks meant I was close to breaking through. But I also knew how fickle public opinion was. One misstep at the hearing, and I'd lose everything. That night, I sat by the window, city lights glowing like far-off stars. I thought of Ruiz's laugh, Simmons's quiet resolve, Hartley's easy grin. They deserve justice. If I had to be ripped apart to get it, so be it. I opened my notebook and scrawled in bold letters. "Tomorrow I speak for them." The Senate chamber felt like walking into a lion's den. Not cold in temperature, but in vibe. Polished wood, nameplates lined up like tombstones, senators staring down like judges in an arena where reputations go to bleed out. Every eye tracked me as I wheeled to the witness table, cameras flashing behind me like muzzle flares. Admiral Ellison sat nearby, his steady presence anchoring me. Noah Patel, pale but resolute, was at my side. Across the room, General Briggs glowered, backed by Helios execs in their slick suits. In the gallery, Dad and Evan watched. Dad's face a stone wall, his eyes like ice. Evan wouldn't even meet my gaze. Senator Lydia Kane, the chairwoman, adjusted her glasses and spoke into the mic. "Lieutenant Reagan Wolfe, you've requested to testify about alleged negligence and misconduct involving Helios Dynamics and the U.S. military. Are you ready to proceed?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, my voice firm despite the pulse hammering in my ears. The questions started gentle, almost too soft. A Texas senator asked about my injuries, my service, my combat experience. I answered carefully, every word a step on thin ice. Then the clause came out. "Lieutenant Wolfe," another senator said, leaning in, "you've accused Helios of deploying faulty equipment knowingly. Do you have evidence, or are these claims a product of mission-related trauma?" I felt the jab, the hint I was unhinged. I met his eyes. "With respect, Senator, I'm not here because of trauma. I'm here because my team died due to negligence, and I won't let their deaths be erased." Victor Lang, Helios's lawyer, smirked as he took the floor. Lieutenant Wolfe, isn't it true you're under evaluation for PTSD? Could your memory of events be unreliable? My hands tightened on the table, but I kept my cool. My memory's clear as day, Mr. Lang, and I've got proof to back it up. With Ellison's nod, I held up Patel's flash drive. A staffer plugged it in, and General Briggs's voice filled the room. If something goes wrong during deployment, we call it a combat loss and move forward. The contract is more important than a few soldiers. The chamber went dead quiet. You could feel the air shift. Briggs's face turned crimson, his jaw locked. That's out of context, he snapped. This is a misrepresentation. Out of context? I cut in, my voice sharp but steady. Tell that to the families of Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley. Tell them their deaths were acceptable risk. Murmurs swept the room. Senators leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Kane raised a hand. Order, General Briggs, you'll have your turn. Lang scrambled, flipping through his notes. Even if that recording's real, it doesn't prove Helios knowingly deployed faulty equipment. Then read the emails, I said, sliding a stack of printed memos across the table. Helios engineers flagged the flaw weeks before my mission. They warned of system freezes. Executives ignored it, calling the potential losses acceptable casualties. Gasps broke out in the gallery. Dad's face stayed carved in stone, but Evan looked down, his hands gripping the bench tight. Lang tried to speak, but Kane shut him down. Mr. Lang, that's enough for now. I scanned the room, my voice clear and unwavering. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I owe it to my team. They died trusting this system, trusting us. I won't let that trust be betrayed. The room felt heavy with shock, tension, and maybe, just maybe, belief. For the first time, the truth was cracking through their walls. The Senate chamber buzzed with tension, electric and raw. After I presented the emails, the Helios execs squirmed, their polished facades crumbling. General Briggs stared at the table, his jaw locked, but his trembling hands gave him away. Senator Lydia Kane leaned forward, her voice sharp. General Briggs, these documents suggest deliberate negligence. Do you deny authorizing a faulty guidance system? Briggs cleared his throat, his voice rough. Those are out of context. We make tough calls for the greater good. The military can't afford delays. Greater good? I cut in, my voice slicing through the room. Who's good? Helios's profits. Your reputation? Tell that to the mothers of Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley, Senator. Tell them acceptable loss is good enough. The words landed like a grenade. Even Briggs fell silent, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Then the chamber doors swung open. Noah Patel entered, flanked by staffers, looking like a man walking to his own execution but refusing to back down. He was sworn in and sat beside me, his resolve a quiet fire. Mr. Patel, Kane said, you worked as a senior engineer at Helios. Can you confirm these documents and recordings? Patel nodded, his voice unsteady but clear. Yes, ma'am. We flagged the guidance system flaws weeks before the mission. We were told to keep quiet or lose our jobs. Helios execs, with General Briggs's sign-off, deemed the risks worth it. The room gasped. Briggs's face burned red. This is treason, he spat, but the words rang hollow, powerless. Patel didn't waver. Treason is sacrificing soldiers for a contract. Treason is lying to their families. I won't stay silent anymore. Kane's gaze shifted to Briggs and the Helios suits. You'll all answer for this. The committee will launch a full investigation. I'm recommending an immediate suspension of Helios contracts and a review of General Briggs's command. The chamber erupted. Murmurs, camera flashes, chaos. It was what I'd fought for, but it didn't feel like victory. Not yet. I glanced at the gallery. Dad's face was unreadable, but something in his posture looked shaken. Evan stared at me, his jaw tight, eyes flickering with what might have been regret. As the hearing broke, I stayed at the table, adrenaline fading into exhaustion laced with vindication. Ellison leaned in, his voice low. You did it, Lieutenant. You broke their shield. I exhaled shakily. It's not over. His lips twitched into a grim smile. Number, but they can't bury you now. My father approached as the room cleared, his uniform heavy, metals like weights dragging him down. He stood silent for a moment, searching my face. You really did it, he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. You stood up to the world and told the truth, I finished, my tone steady. Something you should have done years ago. His jaw tightened, but he didn't fight back. He gave a slight nod, almost invisible, and walked away. It wasn't forgiveness or an apology, just a crack in his armor. Patel turned to me, hands still trembling. They'll come for us harder now, you know. I nodded. Let them. We're done hiding. As I wheeled out, cameras flashed, reporters shouted, but their noise faded. All I heard was my own heartbeat, steady and sure. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The day the Senate committee dropped its findings, I sat alone in a quiet room, eyes glued to a muted TV. The screen flashed the verdict. Helios Dynamics contracts suspended pending investigation. General Briggs relieved of command. Victory should have hit like a wave, but all I felt was hollow. Reporters swarmed the podium, their muffled questions buzzing through the speakers. They wanted the hows, the whos, the depth of the cover-up. I didn't need their answers. I'd lived them. A knock broke the silence. Admiral Ellison stepped in, a faint smile softening his weathered face. It's done, he said. Briggs is out, and Helios will be drowning in lawsuits for years. I nodded, trying to feel something like relief. But my voice caught. It doesn't bring back Ruiz, or Simmons, or Hartley Ellison held my gaze. Number, but you gave their deaths purpose. You've made sure this won't happen again. He slid a folder across the table. The committee just passed a new Whistleblower Protection Act for soldiers. They're calling it the Calloway Clause. My fingers traced the name. Eleanor Calloway, my old professor who'd told me to lead with truth, not rank. I wished she could have seen this. Calloway Clause, I murmured. She'd have loved it. She'd be proud of you, Ellison said with a nod. I am. Then he left me with my thoughts. I sat there, notebook open on my lap, its pages heavy with names and pain. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. Just an empty ache from a battle that shouldn't have been mine to fight. Another knock. A courier handed me an envelope, my father's sharp handwriting unmistakable. I hesitated, half tempted to shred it unread. But the old part of me, the kid who once craved his approval, needed to know. Reagan, I don't expect forgiveness. I can't forgive myself. I was wrong about Helios, about you, about everything. I thought I was shielding you by protecting the system, but I was only guarding my pride. You did what I couldn't. You stood for what's right. If you'll allow it, I'd like to see you. Not as Colonel Wolfe, not as a soldier, but as your father. I read it twice, anger and grief tangling with something softer I couldn't name. Forgiveness wasn't a medal to hand out. It had to be earned. But this felt like a start. The next morning, I met him in the park near the hospital. He sat on a bench in a plain navy sweater. Not a colonel, but a man weighed down by ghosts. Didn't think you'd come, he said as I wheeled up. Almost didn't, I admitted. But I read your letter. He nodded, hands clasped tight. Words don't fix things. But I'm proud of you, Reagan. Always was. I just didn't know how to show it. The old me would have crumbled at that. Now I saw it for what it was. A confession, not a cure. I appreciate it, I said softly. But I can't undo what you said about me, about my team. I'm letting you go for my own peace, not because I need you. His shoulders slumped, eyes glinting with regret. I understand. I just hope someday you'll let me try again. Maybe, I said. But right now, I'm building something for myself, for them. I tapped the notebook, heavy with my team's names. Not for the Wolfe name. For the truth, he didn't fight me. Just nodded and walked away, his steps heavy. I sat there, leaves whispering in the breeze. It wasn't the reconciliation I'd once dreamed of, but it was enough to move forward. Back in my room, my secure phone buzzed. An anonymous message. Briggs was never the real power. You've taken down one face of the machine, but the machine is still running. Be ready. My heart kicked up. I didn't know who sent it or what it meant, but one thing was clear. The fight wasn't over. 2 weeks after the Senate hearing, I sat in front of a mirror, staring at a stranger. The bandages were gone, leaving scars that traced my back like battle lines. I ran a finger along one jagged mark. For months, I'd seen them as proof of failure, of a fight I barely survived. Now, they were proof I'd endured the fire and didn't burn away. The Navy offered me a PR role. Public appearances, interviews, a chance to be their shiny reform poster child. I turned it down. I wasn't here to polish the same machine that tried to crush me. Instead, I took a job at the Naval Academy, teaching ethics and leadership in modern warfare. My mission was to shape young officers to ask the questions no one asked before Ruiz, Simmons, and Hartley paid the price. My first day in the classroom, the cadets went silent as I rolled in. They'd seen my name in headlines, maybe even believed the worst. I didn't hold it against them. Leadership isn't medals or titles, I started, voice steady. It's the choices you make when no one's looking. It's speaking truth, even when it makes you the enemy. A cadet in the front row, young, wide-eyed, hair in a tight bun, approached after class, clutching her notebook. Ma'am, what if the truth cost you everything? What if everyone turns away? I met her gaze, smiling faintly. Then you've found a truth worth fighting for. Keep moving forward. Integrity isn't about who's with you. It's who you are when you're alone. That night, in my small faculty apartment, I sifted through unread messages. One from Evan stopped me. Reagan, I watched the hearing again. You were right. I'm sorry I didn't stand with you. Dad's trying in his way, but it doesn't undo what he said. If you're open to it, I'd like to see you. I stared at the words, then typed back. I forgive you. We'll talk soon. But I'm not looking back, Evan. The next day, I visited the campus chapel. Stained glass cast warm colors across the floor as I lit 3 candles. Ruiz, Simmons, Hartley. Their names echoed in my mind. A quiet prayer. I hope I'm making you proud, I whispered. I didn't feel their death's weight anymore. Just their legacy. It was enough to carry. I started a new notebook, not for pain or evidence, but for lessons to pass on. The first page read, The real victory isn't proving them wrong. It's choosing truth over silence, peace over permission. One Friday, as I finished a lecture, I spotted my father at the back of the room. No uniform, just a quiet figure watching. Our eyes met. He gave a small nod. Not an apology or approval, just acknowledgement. I nodded back, just as subtle, and wheeled past. He stepped aside. We weren't healed, maybe never would be, but I didn't need his validation anymore. I'd found my own. That evening, watching the sunset from my window, a calm settled over me. The war was over, not because the system was fixed or justice was perfect, but because I'd stopped fighting for permission to be. I had my voice and no one was taking it away. If this story touched your heart, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Have you ever faced a moment where speaking the truth cost you everything? I'd love to hear your story. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. And if you believe stories like this matter, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about standing firm, even when you stand alone. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.